Bitter Yuriolu Ziagal came out of our lives on June 24, 2010. We lost her in the prime of her life, when she was only 27 years old. In other words, Bitter became a member of the 27s club. Had she lived today, she would have been 39. Bitter was a woman who was chasing her passions and love for a man who was not worth it, disregarding her pride and trying to thrive in an environment of lovelessness. It may be good in its essence, but it would be appropriate to say that it faded in the hands of Adnan Ziagal, who is a stereotypical person in making his feelings felt, capturing the subtleties of life and living his love. She tried to live a life trapped between her mother's ambitions, her father's loss, Adnan's insensitivity, Bilal's cowardice. Maybe if the people she cares about could be as brave as her, she would have caught happiness from one end, but it didn't. Maybe Bitter did not appear in your mind as a good person. You found what she did very malicious. However, Bitter did all this not because she was a bad person, but to relieve the pain she was experiencing and to suppress it a little. She was a younger woman, a woman who is looking for love, who wants to be loved, who is inexperienced, who is just learning about life. Unfortunately, Bitter's teachers were bad. Let's take a look at what we remember about Bitter Ziagal, the most memorable female lead character in Turkish TV series history, 12 years after her death. She is an unforgettable woman who has been stuck in a road mansion, has not been able to come out of the cocoon she has knitted, has not stopped chasing her passions for a moment even though there is no one in her life who understands her, and has been declared a sinner because of her feelings. One Bitter was a quick-witted woman who fluctuated between her emotions and logic. It had to be like this, because the old Ziagal was like a witch's cauldron. In order to be able to stand there, it was also necessary to be secretive. Bitter may have given the appearance of behaving badly to the maids of the mansion, Mademoiselle, and even Nihal and Bulant, but this was a reflex to survive in the mansion full of intrigues. 2. She never ended the war she had against her mother. She didn't say much, but it gnawed at her inside. When Bitter's father, Mr. Melih, died, he caught his wife, Mrs. Firdevs, with another man. This matter could have remained a secret, but at that moment, Mr. Melih had his little daughter Bitter with him. That's when the war between mother and daughter started that day. Bitter always kept this moment and the evil that her mother did to her father. 3. She always saw herself as her father's daughter. Maybe she wanted to see it that way, but Firdevs Yuriolu did not even allow it. Is it possible to forget the words of Mrs. Firdevs? Same ambition, same anger, same passion. Even though you say I am my father's daughter, you are my daughter Bitter, I am proud of you. 4. Maybe she was not her father's daughter, but she would never be a Firdevs Yuriolu. But that was not possible, because Bitter looked too much like her mother. Ambition, anger, passion. She got it all from her mother. However, she never gave up on her I won't be my mother battle. Who could carry such a heavy load at such a young age? Bitter couldn't carry it either. 5. Bitter always tried to get rid of her mother's shadow, but she could not see that her mother always thought of her well-being. You can say anything for Mrs. Firdevs, but you can never claim to be a bad mother. She always unconditionally supported her daughter, stood behind her and protected her interests. She never revealed her secrets, her mother was always there for her in her most difficult moments. Admittedly, Mrs. Firdevs was not an angel, she had many bad qualities, but when it came to her daughter, she was always a different person. Bitter couldn't see this, maybe she didn't want to see it. 6. Nihal, Mademoiselle, Bilal, Peker, Mr. Adnan. There was no one around her who could understand her and talk to her. Bitter always had to manage, she always had to hide things and tell lies. However, she did not want any of this. How many times she wanted to explain the truth to everyone, but she was turned away. She was almost condemned to live like this, she fell into an unknown and had to face it all alone. Bitter could only open up to her mother and couldn't hear what she wanted in her. 7. Bitter was a passionate woman, a woman who seeks love and desires happiness, for which she was ready to give up even her wealth. In fact, she showed twice how serious she was, got ready, hit the road, but was stopped. Nobody understood Bitter. She always had to struggle alone with people who were against her. Who weren't? Mademoiselle, the dull Nihal, Mrs. Ferdevs, the maids of the house, especially Semil, Katya, and even Balul. She fought hand to hand with all of them, she struggled, she was not under anyone, but Bitter was alone. It was only after she died that we saw what the devastating effects of this struggle could be. They gnawed at Bitter like a worm. 9. She made the mistake of falling in love with a cowardly, witty, aimless person like Balul. Balul was a complete snob. He was a cowardly, weak, witty character who always took a step back. However, this is the heart. Bitter's heart was unfortunately set on fire. She didn't realize that this love was dragging her towards an end, maybe she did, but she always wished it wasn't. She didn't look for money or wealth, she just wanted love, she wanted to love and be loved, but unfortunately the person she chose was very wrong. 10. Every day she suffered the so-called love affair with someone else in front of the man she loved so much. She fought so that this would not happen, and even asked for help from her mother, whom she saw as an enemy. I'm telling you to break it for this, for this. I'm dying, get it? They love each other right in front my eyes. I'm dying of their happiness while I'm writhing in torment. Bitter trampled on her pride, watched them kiss, laughed at their false happiness, crying blood. Who could pull such a thing? Bitter experienced this, she lived it alone, in front of her eyes. 11. But was Bitter the only one who cheated? Wasn't Balul cheating on his uncle too? It was, of course, but Bitter had to bear the entire burden. Wherever the cowardly Balul took her, she always stayed in her place and did not compromise her love. As a result, she paid the price. Balul only knew how to cry at the graveside, he was a coward even there, lame even there. 12. Bitter loved well no matter what, she felt her love inside her, she risked everything. Bitter was strong, at this young age, she stood in a mansion smelling of mothballs, among all kinds of enemies, and she loved. Moreover, this was not an ordinary love, she lived to the fullest, forced every condition, never gave up, never gave up. Bitter made herself accepted. 13. The things Bitter risked for her love bored a piece of us all, her weaknesses, her helplessness, were the common point of all of us. That's why we loved it so much, maybe we found parts of ourselves what they lived. Her struggle, her feelings, her love, what she went through were things that happen in one way or another in our lives, we identified with Bitter and just loved it. 14. Bitter Ziagal was the most important female character of all time, she was someone who lived beyond our time, declared a sinner because of her feelings, passions, and love. Neither Nihal, Adnan, Balul, Mademoiselle and the others are not even Bitter's nails. Maybe that's why they didn't want her in their midst, they plucked it like grass and threw it away. Bitter was an icon not only as a character, but also with her clothing, hair, makeup and everything. Bitter Ziagal, who taught us to suffer with her love, passions, and storms, is unforgettable. As long as we hold on to her, whatever we watch after this hour, she will always be our main character. Rest in peace, Bitter.